Say, you should have the little woman swing by my compound for a thorough examination.
You think you can help her?
Oh, I know I can. My science is quite potent.
Bad friend.
I came through, didn't I?
Arrears in Science is the third episode of Season 7 and part 3 of 3 of what is known as the Morphic Trilogy. It first aired on August 19th, 2018, and was written by Jackson Public. The episode continues the story first started in the previous 2 episodes, this time adding Vendetta into the mix as he confronts Jonas Venture. There have been numerous subtle references to the fact that the Venture compound was located in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which according to Google Maps is 1,757.7 miles away from Newark, New Jersey, pretty damn near the same distance that Vendetta traveled from Don Hell's to his home in Newark. In a flashback, it's revealed that Dr. Z spent some time getting up to no good with Shrill Spectre and Scary Nielsen, which is a reference to John Lennon's Lost Weekend phase after he got divorced and did a bunch of drugs, drank a bunch of booze, and got up to no good with musicians Phil Spector and Harry Nielsen. And speaking of musical references, Mr. Fahrenheit, the Supersonic Man, is a reference to Queen frontman Freddie Mercury and lyrics from the Queen song Don't Stop Me Now. That's why they call me Mr. Fahrenheit. I'm traveling at the speed of light. I want to make a supersonic man out of you. And if you just heard me read that monotonously, I apologize. YouTube wouldn't let me play the clip. And even more music references, Colonel Gentleman's outfit is torn straight from David Bowie in the music video for Dancing in the Street. The Morphic Trilogy as a whole takes an easily forgotten Season 1 episode and makes it super important 14 years later. This episode, Arrears in Science, derives its name from that episode, Careers in Science. Let's start by talking exclusively about that episode. First, there's a callback to maybe my favorite joke from that episode.
It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. It's on. Off. It's on. It's off. It's on. Off. It's on.
That's called blinking, boys.
In which it's totally recontextualized.
It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. It's on. It's off. It's on. Off.
I tried to communicate with them. They mustn't teach the cadets Morse code anymore.
Next, we have a quick shot of a young paperboy aboard the Gargantua 1. His name tag says Manstrong, which refers back to a quick line from Careers in Science.
When it gets cold like this, I always remember back when I was a paperboy on the station.
And finally, original Team Venture shattered Jonas Venture's body after slipping on a cowboy toy, which we know belonged to a young Rusty Venture.
Oh, fine, Dad. Blame me. Blame Rusty. But whose fault is this? Oh, God, it's mine.
Next up, we have to talk about the story of Vendetta and what this episode adds to it. Previously, we were made aware that Don Fitzcarraldo, the Monarch's father, took on the identity of the Blue Morpho to pose as a bad guy and fight crime from the inside, and that he would often do Jonas Venture's dirty work. In this episode, we find out that Jonas Venture was actually blackmailing him to do this dirty work using a sex tape that the Monarch and 21 had previously found in Rapacity and Blue.
Groovy! Our arch enemies are here.
Blue Morpho. It looks like some evil doers have entered our lair.
Oh, we're in for it now, Jonas. And they appear to have a growth ray.
Go, Team Venture.
One such assignment he was blackmailed into doing was seducing Dr. Z, which calls back to the episode A Party for Tarzan.
Do you know why I'm here?
Because I seduced you with my perfect animal charm, and my slim, hairless Asian body appears vaguely feminine in this light?
No, I was sent here by Jonas Venture.
It's also heavily implied that he is sterile and that Jonas Venture had sex with his wife all before presumably meeting his tragic end in a plane crash. The same plane crash that the Monarch somehow survived as part of his origin story. But Jonas salvaged his body and turned him into his own personal cyborg, Venturion. At some point, Venturion attempts to strangle a young Rusty and Kano broke his neck. This is who Kano was referring to back in Orb, not Jonas Venture Sr.
So, did you have to do it too? Kano, did you kill the great Dr. Venture Sr.? Oh, so now you're a mute again.
And as a result of young Rusty's robotic strangulation, he's held on to some trauma.
With robot fingers,
Daddy.
they linger.
No, the metal murder man from my nightmares. He was real. What the?
Next up, Dr. Z reconstructs Venturion, gives him an aesthetic overhaul, and renames him Vendetta. This was all previously alluded to in Bot Seeks Bot if you actually paused the episode and took the time to read the guild computer. Somehow Vendetta ends up becoming a member of the Council of 13, and after several years have passed, goes out to a nightclub, which we see in the episode Bot Seeks Bot, which takes place 4 months before this episode. While there, he takes some damage and malfunctions, and seems to recall the plane crash that killed him, offering the fanbase its first clue that he may be related to the Monarch.
Where is my wife? Have you? Honey, does not compute.
Oh, sorry, man. I haven't seen her.
Does not Who am I? I think the plane is going now.
Done here?
And one last little nugget of Vendetta goodness. Jackson and Doc commissioned artist Patrick Legere to make a bunch of art for them, including this collection of graphics which were used in the Season 5 DVDs and the Venture Brothers bedsheets Adult Swim sold for a brief time, hinting that there was maybe something important about Vendetta. So that's Vendetta, but we're not even close to finished with the episode. Hank makes a quick reference to Russian Guyevich, his adopted persona, back in Showdown at Cremation Creek Part 2.
I am exchange henchman from Russian supervillain.
Well, you picked a hell of a time to come over.
In this episode, we find out that the Pyramid Wars were actually started by the Sovereign pretending to be Sphinx Commander. At the diner, you see Jonas Venture on the cover of Epic magazine, and on the back cover of that same magazine is an ad for the Stanza. The Action Man suffers a stroke in this episode, which Orpheus first predicted in Season 1's past tense.
2 years, 17 days. From a stroke. Good day!
Jackson and Doc have stated that this doesn't necessarily mean 2 years and 17 days have passed, as the Action Man may have taken this as a wake-up call to take better care of himself and prolonged his eventual, inevitable stroke. Pete uses the boom broom, first seen in Tears of a Sea Cow, to smash the glass housing of the shrink ray seen randomly throughout the series. And finally, along with the Rusty Venture parade float, there's also a parade float for Busy Bee, the Ventureverse equivalent of Mickey Mouse, and Alpha Dog, the cartoon mascot of the cereal of the same name.
Say, what you eating there?
Alpha Dog!
This episode is very likely my all-time favorite episode of the Venture Brothers. I remember just watching this episode with my mouth agape from start to finish the first time I saw it, and this episode is most likely the reason I wanted to make these videos in the first place. A lot of the big reveals were partly hinted at throughout the series, but it was just so gratifying to see all those dots get officially connected. In the past, Jackson and Doc would hint at a thing only for it to be a complete misdirection or a last-minute subversion, i.e. heavily implying Dermot was Brock's son. This is why I'm still not fully on board with saying that Dr. Venture and the Monarch are brothers. I know that this show is first and foremost a comedy, but when you've watched every episode a million times, you kind of forget how funny it is and focus on the little details that tell the big story. I mean, remember the first time you heard of a dude called Phantom Limb that's just a dude with invisible arms and legs? That shit was funny. But Phantom Limb has evolved from quick sight gag to actual character who we're interested in seeing succeed or fail. And that's kind of a metaphor for the whole show. Sure, it's hilarious, but Jackson and Doc have crafted an entire universe, and I want to know every single thing about it I can. I love the Ventureverse, and I love the Venture Brothers. As always, thank you for watching, and go Team Venture. Tune in next week for The High Cost of Loathing. If you dug this video, share it with a friend, and if there was some huge glaring thing that I missed in this video, follow me on Instagram at Ventureverse Guide to see these videos a week early and offer your input before I upload the final product.